guys, and thanks for tuning into the channel today. Listen, if you're a teacher, I think you're going to be interested in today's video because I'm going to be sharing with you a collaborative learning model example that I've been using in my classroom with some success. Also, for those people who have requested me to do this, well, today's your day and you're getting exactly what you're looking for. Anyway, let's get things underway. Let's learn, share, and teach. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mr. K. I'm a primary school, elementary school teacher and a very proud parent. Now, I've geared my channel towards helping students, parents and teachers better learn, share and teach to get the best learning outcomes for students. Now, if this sounds like something you would be interested in, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button down below. That would be greatly appreciated. Now, recently I did an introductory video to collaborative learning, and in that video I discussed what collaborative learning was. I also looked at studies, data and evidence out there that showed that collaborative learning was beneficial, and I also talked about some tips and tricks on how you could implement collaborative learning groups in your classroom. Now, if you haven't seen that video, please go back and see that. Otherwise, if you're looking for an example of how someone implemented collaborative learning groups in their classroom and what sort of outcomes they got, well, today you're going to be getting exactly that. I'm going to be sharing with you how my implementation of collaborative learning groups in my classroom, well, specifically my writing class, has gone over the last year. Excellent. Anyway, let's refresh our memories first of all on what collaborative learning is. So collaborative learning is a learning approach of using groups to enhance learning through working together. It involves obviously groups of 2 or more people where learners work together to solve problems, learn new concepts and complete tasks. Now, in addition to just collaborative learning groups, you'll also see other side benefits that seem to occur naturally because of the way things are structured. You'll see students doing peer teaching or peer tutoring. You'll also experience reciprocal teaching, which are both beneficial for student learning, but that is another video. Excellent. So let's get into my own personal experience. Let's talk about the outcomes first. So over the last year, I've experienced student writing improving around about 281%. Student writers improved from attempt to attempt around about 8%. The kids do multiple pieces of writing over the year. On average, there's around about 1 to 2 weeks between each assessment piece that they do. But from one attempt to the other, they're improving around about 8%. And then finally, the really big benefit I've seen is that the kids have been really engaged. And I think the big reason around that is that they've got that great feeling of helping their fellow students, but also they love sharing what they know. So this is all culminated in greater than a year's worth of learning on average for the students. Anyway, let's get into things. Let's see what I did and how I implemented things over the year. Excellent. Let's go. Whee! So on the screen now, you can see the collaborative learning groups cycle example. Now, this is a great resource that I use. It's basically a roadmap on how to implement the collaborative learning groups in your class. But also, it's great for planning out how you're going to bring in other teaching strategies to further support your students' learning. Anyway, let's start where it says start here. And I like to implement my collaborative learning groups by, first of all, teaching the students how to cooperate, also what a growth mindset is and how they can use it in the class, also how they can compete against each other well, and how to give feedback and peer teach. Then I go ahead and set up the groups for the leader and team members. I also explain the scoring system and how it's built on improvement. It's not about, getting the higher score, but it's about improving the most. Then I go ahead and set up lessons where I direct teach. I flip content through the use of video. I then employ jigsaw groups. I also set up practice sessions where students can help each other. Then I set an assessment piece and we do that. I communicate the results to the parents and also provide that feedback to the students and celebrate with them. Then after that, I go ahead and set goals for the class with student input and also from the individual for their individual goals. Then it all starts off and kicks off again, this whole cycle, by me setting up lessons where I'm providing direct teaching and I'm flipping content with videos, and then it goes on to the other steps, so on and so on. So let's go in and talk about these different steps in a little bit more detail. Step 1. So I teach them how to cooperate, what a growth mindset is and how they can implement it in the class, also how to compete against each other or between each other, how to give feedback, and peer teach. So I really start off by setting up in the student's mind that they are learning allies. They're there to support each other and help each other to learn the most. I also talk about competition and how it has its place when it's constructive, low-key, and fun, and how when sometimes it can get ugly if it gets too serious. And if it does get too serious, how they can fall back on reminding themselves what good sportspersonship is and what that looks like. Then we go ahead and talk about the growth mindset and how we can learn and do well through hard work and how it's all about improving. It's not about, getting the highest score or being the most talented. It's about working hard and practicing and improving our skills. And everyone can improve just by doing practice. Then we go ahead and we talk about how we can talk to each other, give feedback to each other and peer teach with ideas like, instead of, just sitting there and not helping someone or frowning or, judging them, we can turn around and say, can I help you? Something a little bit more constructive. And then I talk to them about, how do they like to be talked to when someone teaches them? And using the way that they like to be talked when they talk to someone else. Step number 2, set up the groups and explain the scoring system and how it's built on improvement. When I set up my groups, I like to set them up with around about 4 students. The main reason behind this is that I find that 4 provides enough skill and expertise so that they can work effectively and solve problems together and learn together. And there's not too many people where, it's basically little subgroups going off and, working by themselves and maybe not sharing ideas. So I find groups of 4 really conducive to getting the best outcomes. Then I set those groups up with students with a variety of skills, normally a student with higher abilities, 2 middle ability students, and then 1 with lower abilities. Then I go ahead and set up the groups with a leader, and the leader, normally I choose the person who is the higher ability or one of the 2 middle ability students. Then I go ahead and explain the roles of the students within their team and what they are. And they are to improve, achieve their individual learning goals, achieve their class learning goals, and also help each other, importantly, to improve. So, how do you set up a scoring system? Well, look, there are many different ways you can do this, but I think scoring actually helps you provide some standardized way of measuring how students are tracking. I find it easy to provide feedback too when it comes to scoring. Anyway, let's keep going. Students are marked on different variables of the final work they will be producing. So for example, in writing, I'll mark them on how beautifully they've done their letters, or have they used full stops, or has their writing made sense? And I provide them with a scale of for each variable, where 0 points means that there was no attempt of actually doing that variable in their piece of work. 1 point would indicate there was an attempt, but it wasn't done that well. 2 points will indicate that a reasonable attempt was made and they had some success in doing it. And 3 points is the highest that they could get, and that basically communicates that it was successfully done. The individual score is constructed from the total of all variables. So as you can see on my example on the screen here, each variable would get 3 points, and then the total of that is 60 for this student. So you total them all up to give the student a final score. Then what you would go ahead and do is that you would compare 1 week's score to the next and deduct the previous week's score from the current week's score to work out how much the student has improved. Then you would basically add those all up for the team members, how much each team members improved, and that would work out to be the team improvement score. Also, an important thing to note here with your students is that any rewards that will be given on the basis of the team improvement scores. Now, this highlights to the students that, well, if all of my team members do well, then I have a greater chance of winning the reward. So really emphasize that any rewards that are being given will be given based on team improvement scores. Step number 3, direct, teach, and flip. Well, in this part, I explicitly teach the content to the class that will empower them or enable them to do activities and assessments relative to their individual and class learning goals. I'll then also flip lessons that I've recorded online that basically aim to help the student learn their specific learning goal. I then also set up teacher focus groups where I would pick maybe 5 students that have the same learning goal and would sit down and talk about that content, and I'll teach that to them. And then I'd have, of course, one-to-one discussions and conferencing about the students' work and how they're going and how they can improve. Step 4, employ jigsaw groups. I really love this teaching strategy. What happens here is that you take a member from each of the collaborative learning groups and you put them in a new team called a jigsaw group. That group have to go ahead and research something. Now, normally it's related to their individual or the class learning goal. They go ahead and research it. Then they go ahead and make a resource that they can present and use to peer teach back to the class as a group. Once they've gone ahead and done their presentation to the class, and obviously that is peer teaching, they'll then go back into their normal groups, their normal collaborative groups, taking their knowledge with them as subject matter experts, so that when a student in that group or that collaborative learning group does have a difficulty, they can call on that subject matter expert that's been created through the jigsaw group to help them. Step number 5, provide practice sessions where students can help each other. So you set up activities where students must produce something individually. This ensures individual responsibility, and that's very important because you don't want to have those students that don't participate or don't contribute in some way. And then you make it clear to the team members that they can help each other during this time and remind them of the skills that they need to do that, and how they should talk to each other, okay, when they're peer teaching. And then also, if you see something like peer teaching, remember to reward it and make a bit of a deal about it. Okay, excellent. Step 6, assessment piece. Make it clear that team members cannot help each other during this time and remind them of the skills they need as well as their team and individual learning goals. Step 7, mark and communicate to parents. So share what you did in step 1 with parents. This can empower parents better to discuss and help their students at home. Mark the work on the variables and then send this to the parents. Ask parents to discuss it with their student along the lines of growth mindset and to celebrate any improvements, and to teach along the lines of what you shared with them from what you did in step 1. Also, if possible, provide resources of information for the parents to use to teach the student. Also, an important thing to note here is that if you wanted to provide more incentive for students to improve their individual learning goal, then you could actually give a higher mark if they did achieve their learning goal. So there's something to think about as well to add. Step 8, provide feedback and celebrate. So walk through the scores of each team and highlight positive elements to each child's score. Then recognize the group scores and summarize what really helped people to improve. And hopefully, you'll come up with something like working hard brought about really good learning. If students don't improve, discuss something you liked they did in their work and how hard work will see them improve next week. Also, don't give them a negative score. Give them a 0 that just indicates no improvement overall. But that doesn't mean that they maybe haven't improved on a certain variable, which you might have highlighted earlier on as one of the things you did like in their work. Step 9, set goals for the class and the individual. So what you can do here is individually conference students to identify their new learning goals, while you can have the rest of the class do an activity they can do by themselves. Also discuss as a class what the class learning goal should be and promote the seeking of challenge, to push themselves a little bit to achieve a goal that isn't too hard, but isn't too easy either. Now, I thought I would provide you with an example of how you could use the collaborative learning group cycle in a week. So let's have a look here. You could start off Monday by providing feedback and celebrating the outcomes of the previous assessment with student on Monday. And then you can also on the Monday set goals for the class and the individual. Then on a Tuesday, you could go ahead and do your direct teaching and your flipping of lessons. Wednesday, you could go ahead and employ the jigsaw groups. Thursday, you could do a practice session where the students get a chance to actually help each other further. And then on Friday, you could do your assessment and you can mark and communicate this to parents. Now, obviously, everyone has different commitments and might find different ways of doing things that are more beneficial, and that's fine. This is just an example of how you can apply the collaborative learning group cycle in a week, for example. Excellent. So there you have it, the collaborative learning group, all the elements that it has, and you can see how it does start off there with those couple of elements where you set it up, and then it goes ahead and just cycles through all the time. So there you have it. Okay, so let's now talk about a brief summary. So collaborative learning is the educational approach of using groups to enhance learning through working together. And consistent with study data, the outcomes in my classroom that I achieved or my students achieved over the year through using collaborative learning groups has been greater than a year's worth of learning. Within what we've seen today, you've seen a couple of different tools, but one tool that I thought was really good was the collaborative learning group the collaborative group learning cycle, which is sort of like your roadmap on how to implement things and the different tools or strategies, teaching strategies you can actually use to support collaborative learning. And then finally, please, I'm looking forward to seeing some more stuff on video from other teachers on how you have experimented with collaborative learning groups and what sort of results you got and what worked and maybe what didn't work as well. Excellent. Listen, thanks for tuning in today. Look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day. Bye. Thanks for watching one of my videos. If you've enjoyed the content or you just want to show your support, please just click the subscribe button down below. You hitting the subscribe button lets me know that you'd like to see more content from me. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Subscribe.